What's happening? Andy here. I am joined today by Marc Spring of ITEX. How are you today, Marc?
It is good to be back, Andy.
Great to see you. Great to see you. I wanted to check in, find out what's happening with our one of our favorite shows. We had to kind of miss it last year, I guess is the only easy way to say it, due to all the things that we're dealing with. But right now we're scheduled for ITEX 2021, November 9th and 10th. Why don't you, first of all, how are you doing? How's everything down in Florida? And then get into what you guys are doing to prepare for the upcoming show.
Well, down in Florida, things are opening up. We've got a governor who's kind of shotgunning it down here, as people know. So we've been getting back to business as usual. Yeah, so over the last couple of about the last month and a half, we made a decision and kind of watched the trends. Things have been trending a little bit different lately, but we're still, forging ahead with ITEX. We announced it. All of our vendors, US-based vendors, we're really excited. We didn't do it alone. We definitely did it with talking to the attendees who had signed up, to the vendors who had already had booths, and everybody felt like it was a time to announce to do it. BTA did their event. It was really well attended, and we were excited when we saw that. I think 150 plus dealers turned out to the event you were at. So we're excited for what's going on, and it's the right time for dealers to kind of get an idea of what business is going to look like going forward, and share some ideas on how they're going to leverage what is happening now with technology. And we're ready to present that. We've got a great partner in Keypoint Intelligence on our content. And yeah, we're ready to hit the ground running. We're going to have some webinars very shortly on that's going to kind of circle around and give a preview on what the content's going to be. But really, it's all going to really circle back to the business not post-COVID, but how COVID has affected the office solution industry.
Well, let's take a step back right there. You guys are you're planning to be there, earlier part of November, right? Good time to be in Las Vegas. As you said, it was you're kind of riding on the heels of looking at what some other shows have done, and I know a lot of the associations, CDA and SDG, have had meetings. You mentioned BTA, one that I was just at recently, which was awesome. I mean, great meeting, great attendance, and you can just feel people are ready to be out. Right. It's been a while. People are hungry for some knowledge, hungry for just some interaction with their peers again. And so, it'd be nice if we can keep this going. We're, our fingers crossed that we can get to ITEX this time and, not have to revisit what we did last year, which was a pain for everybody. Looking at the themes, excuse me, you mentioned Keypoint Intelligence. I know we ran an article about from you guys yesterday. Print is never coming back. That was the headline. So Randy Dazzo runs Keypoint Intelligence. That is part of BLI, and it's a research firm and testing firm. Randy is an instrumental person there, a great person to have as far as presenting a topic like that. What's Randy going to talk about, and what are we going to see from him there?
Well, we're putting together the education track with them. We're actually pivoting off of over $100,000 worth of research that they've done, which is going to be presented at ITEX. And the fact is print is down at the peak over 60%, and it's not going to come back. It's not going to come back to pre-COVID. People have, of course, are working remote. And yeah, people are going to come back to the office, but even the office print that was happening before, people have learned to work in a different way. And that's going to change the way that people continue to work. I've said before that technology has moved ahead 5, maybe 10 years. People who didn't even know how to join a Zoom session now can get on Zoom and share their screens and do things that they just couldn't do before. That's just a small piece of technology that they've learned how to use. Just think about what you did when you went and got your COVID shot, and everybody was using iPads and everybody was scanning things, and there was no paper, there was no paper trails. those things are just a small piece of what people learned how to do, how to handle legal documents with using document management and digital files. All those things have been accelerated. And that's going to happen exponentially now because people like it. And that is going to have a major effect on print. Aside from the fact that people are not going to return to the office in the same amounts that there were before. People are going to come back to the office. This idea that people are not coming back to the office, I don't think that that's the case. I think people are going to come back, but many of the companies that were announcing a return, now they've announced not a return. We actually closed one of our offices. We're not going to come back. We're small, 10 people, but we aren't returning to the office. We figured out how to work remote, and it's actually an advantage for us. So those things have happened. And I think now more than ever, it's a time for people really have to figure out how they become that true solutions provider. I talked to a friend of mine who does a lot of M&A work in our industry. Nobody is looking for print-only providers. If a company is print-based, if they're print-based, they're not buying those dealerships anymore. Zero. That's a fact. I mean, he specifically said to me, we are not buying print-based companies anymore. We're looking for IT-based companies. So, I mean, now, so what do you do if you want to be bought? You better go out and develop a managed services base. That's just a fact of life.
So, what we're trying to get at is what types of companies, differentiating from previous shows, what types of technologies are we going to start seeing at maybe this year's ITEX that really play into that remote work or in the post-COVID office?
Well, I think you're going to see a lot more products that have to do with VoIP and video conferencing, anything that really has to do with securing the remote office and being able to work on the go. I think those are things that people are going to want to be able to do, being able to maybe work in a more of a unstructured environment. And that's what we're driving towards, to be able to deliver that type of technology to resellers, to show them how to take advantage of those opportunities.
So you guys will get out there. The show's just going to go. What hotel is it at again? Where is it?
It's at the Flamingo, Bugsy Siegel's place.
So they just redid that right before your last show, actually. So it's a good time to be in Las Vegas. We're going to be looking at being there in November, just when it starts getting cold here. Last couple of things, what are you excited about this year? You had to take a year off. What's getting you out of bed? What's really driving you?
I'm excited that Key Point's going to be putting on a front runner for the show. I think that is a big draw of why you really need to be out there. Key Point's done a lot to bring the dealers what are the next best things on a platter, really, to show them where the prints are, what it looks like, not after COVID yet, but kind of where things are leaning. What are the new technologies? So I'm not sure if everybody really understands kind of what happened with BLI and the whole transition on Key Point and InfoTrends, but their business model has also gone from the testing of printers and copiers to the testing of IT products. So they're really in the know in the managed IT space, as well as the smart office, smart home. So, they're a great resource, and they've spent a lot of time and a lot of effort to, understand the transition of the technology and where the opportunities lie for our dealers. And, it's going to be who's going to grab that opportunity first, because we're competing, our industry is competing against the managed service space and, the AV space. So great reason to be out there and take part in their event. The floor will be able to show you some of the vendors they'll talk about in their education.
So speaking of that, so just to wind down, it'll be typical to previous ITEX shows, I'm sure, right? So we're going to have educational tracks. You'll have probably a bunch of good speakers on some topics that, you know, are very relevant to the reseller world. And then just some networking and just a lot of socializing, right? You know, just a lot of elbow rubbing with your peers and with a lot of companies that, you know, you haven't seen in a while, and then some you've never seen. So always a good show. I'll be there. I plan on being there, and I look forward to it, Mark. And always a pleasure. Any last shout outs you'd like to give? Any last words of wisdom before we wrap up?
Andy, thank you very much, man. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak to all of the people who love and follow you. You are, you know, you're the voice of the industry, man. Thank you.
Well, thank you for saying that. I definitely enjoy coming to these shows, doing this kind of coverage. So it's always a pleasure to talk to you. And say hi to the team down there, and we will catch up soon, and we'll check in another time or two before we actually get to the ITEX show, and we'll kind of find out where you're at and how things are progressing. So great seeing you, Mark. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Andy.